who've gone through 3 entire iterations of pin pads in less than 18 months because of foolish business decisions. They went from the old style pin pads to the new ones that were chip and pin, and then they realized that another branch of the same organization put out a credit card that had an RFID on it, and they couldn't use their own goddamn credit card in their own goddamn stores, so they changed all their pin pads again. So you know what? When the difference is 22+% versus under 1% for the overnight rate, there's lots of money in that interest spread to take care of replacing the whole system. And remember, those economic incentives matter. Debit card transactions are measured in cents per transaction, fixed price. Credit card transactions are measured in a mixture of fixed price plus percentage price. Change the economic incentives in both directions. Make it so that if I use the new modern system that doesn't have every vulnerability known to man and require fraud management of hundreds and hundreds of people per issuing bank, say it very simply to the customer, I'm only going to charge you 9% interest. Which card is the customer going to choose to use? The old assy one or the new fancy one? The solutions aren't solutions that we can execute on. They're solutions that we can pressure towards once we get to the point where, as InfoSec professionals, we're doing our fucking job.
But you're saying we also need to put pressure on the PCI Council and merchants in order to enact that change.
I think the only change you can do is the one.
How about if we do the right thing, no matter what somebody else tells us to do?
How about issuing banks and the credit brands themselves? I mean, let's quit dumping this on the merchants, because 100,000.
Yeah.
100,000 merchants aren't going to develop a better solution than 3 card brands.
Right.
That's
grab
not possible.
One quick question and give everybody a minute or so to wrap up, and then we'll go into the Q&A room.
So you keep coming back to this point that PCI is all about the credit cards, and there's plenty of other information out there that needs to be protected. And absolutely, your point about, hey, we need to replace the whole system, but that's going to take time, it's going to take money. So
2
in the interim,
years, no problem.
Let
me do it. I'll show you how. It's cool. Whiteboard it for you.
Keep your pants
in
on.
the interim, until everybody
Simmer
gets
down,
on
Davis.
board and does that, you know, when somebody breaks in and steals a bunch of credit card numbers, it affects me, it affects, you know, my friends, my family, everybody in this room. And maybe not directly, but maybe just through increased cost for all the goods we buy, because all that fraud permeates the system and we all pay for it. When somebody breaks into some pharmaceutical, steals the intellectual property for the next Viagra, doesn't affect me. So in the meantime, until we can get some new system in place, isn't there a use for having something like PCI out there to, at least for the people who don't want to cheat, who do want to try to be secure but don't know how, give them these guidelines. Okay, I used the wrong word, I'm sorry. Not secure, but show them what the common sense they should be already doing.
If they don't know how to be secure without PCI, it's not going to help that much.
CISSP, buddy. CISSP.
That's exactly it. There's a lot of CISSPs out there.
We need a unicorn chaser
what are you
at
doing?
this point.
But give them something to start with.
No, it's valid. It's a starting point. And we can't deny that it's moved us forward, but we're so far behind that we really need to look forward. No, there are a lot of people that have budget because of that. I mean, the penetration testing industry is an industry because PCI requires it. And with that, I really encourage everyone to follow up with this. I'd like to give everybody on the panel a moment or so to wrap up. This has been a follow-up to what we did last year. Hopefully there's been more information. We will be in the Q&A room, and we really want to continue the conversation. We won't beat you to death. With that, I'd like to start with Mr. Arlen and see if he has something to say. I doubt it, because he is without opinion, as are everyone here.
Doinginfosecright.com. Also, you're all back in here at 8 o'clock for Hacker Pyramid, right?
Right?
Woo!
Mr. Shackford.
Cleveland. Are you guys looking at me? Jesus. Yeah. So bottom line. I mean, whatever. I mean, I'm one of those people that don't hit that, John. That's really bad. So I mean, honestly, I'm ambivalent. I see people that have really benefited from PCI. I see people that have really benefited from just about any compliance measure. But I also see the flip side of that: the people that just don't give a shit at all, and they look to get the auditors in, out, and move on to the next year. And, I don't think that us sitting here and having this dialogue is going to get us there either. But, in in some cases, I think it's a good thing. So I'm going to be that annoyingly optimistic guy on the panel too.
I've seen a lot of environments, and there are some where people are doing PCI with the idea that it will make them secure, that they're trying to go beyond PCI and be secure, and they're actually doing some effective work. I've seen a lot of people who just haven't been able to get the budget before PCI came along. I've also seen a lot of companies where they look at PCI and go, it's another pain in our rear. We're going to do the very minimum we can do to make ourselves compliant. We're never going to be secure, so just give us our rock and go away.
So I think if you understand the limitations and how defeatable even a fully compliant PCI environment is, then you have a baseline. And if you understand it's a very low baseline, only then are you able to look at the attack density, how people are getting popped, and prioritize how do you shift some of that budget. Now, what Mike Don and Gene Kim and I did a lot of work on was figuring out how do you massively reduce scope and have less data to lose and less systems involved in scope, and that liberates funds to do protection of other non-scope, non-card data assets. So we have a lot of research and specifics behind that. But the trick isn't, looking at that as a finish line. It's how do I, budgetary jujitsu, how do I use PCI to fund my visible ops project? Or how do I use it to pivot into non-card data security initiatives? But if you don't realize how limited and narrow it is in the first place, then those are off the table.
I'll end with this. I can't give you guys a solution, but I can tell you how you can start to get at a solution, and that is demand transparency around data. You give smart people in this industry data, and we'll start to figure stuff out. But we are being kept ignorant, and you have to wonder if that isn't purposefully.
We are debating something really quick. Don't move.
Don't move.
So, you're good. Okay. Don't get all excited about them leaving yet because they're not going to. Our 5 o'clock speaker, who is... Crap, I should have looked that up before I started speaking, shouldn't I?
That guy.
We're in track 1.
Yeah, well, thank you. My password is full of fail. Jason Pittman is not going to be going from 5 to 5:20, so these guys are going to hang out till 5:20, and then after that we got another turbo talk. So,
or you could come over to the Network Security Podcast and watch us record episode 250.
So can we have a round of applause for at least Martin?
Don't everybody run away at once.
Let's do, instead of going into the smaller room, we'll do Q&A because I'd be willing to bet some of you have opinions. Martin's going to run away because he's doing the 250th episode of the Network Security Podcast. Let's start Q&A here, and then we'll move into the other room or commentary. Yes, sir. Let's dive in.
So one of the things that I found to be kind of interesting about PCI, I guess from an introspective kind of way, what are our failures as a community, is that, I've been a former QSA and all that. I've seen a lot of environments for Verizon Business, is that our real challenge is operationalizing the process of security. And I think one of the things that PCI shows us with these failures is that is the problem.
It's really hard.
And I'd be interested in hearing your comments on that.
So it was a commentary about operationalization of security. And one of the things that in my past that I've done is I've always worked with smaller businesses until recent career change. And because we had to in small business, we operationalized. Somebody keeps giving me liquor. So anyway, we did that to security in small business. It's because we had to, but larger enterprises kind of need to, and he knows something about that.
I'm going to give a really quick, simple answer. Find me later, though. But the visible ops studies that wasn't about really security, it was about IT operational excellence, showed massive deltas. That the tighter you run your IT, the fewer break fixes, the faster mean time. It's basically like security is an accidental byproduct of really well-managed IT. So there are some studies that show high correlation, at least, to operationalizing IT with security in mind.
I was going to say
there was a study at Weiss that's backing that data up again. So that's
yeah. Well, here's personal experience in that. I once upon a time ran a whole lot of security with 0 direct reports. I had about 187 indirect reports, and by making sure that security was everybody's job, because I'm a nice, friendly guy who buys a lot of coffee, I was able to achieve a level of security proceduralization that wasn't because you went to the security binder and looked at what to do, but because it was just your damn ops binder. Of course, we had binders then too. Not SharePoint, because it sucks.
And I'll just throw one thing on that too. I mean, if I started getting up here and talking in depth about change in configuration management, how many of you would still be fucking awake in about 2 minutes?
Woo! Config management, sexy.
None of you, right? At least the people that are being honest. And unfortunately, that's the most important stuff in terms of general God, I can't even say that.
Yeah, what he said.
Operationalizing IT and security in general, but I mean, that's the problem. We don't do a good job of that.
Okay,
Doing InfoSec, right?
Next question.
Next.
Chad Sturgill.
What's up, Alex? Hey, so love or hate PCI, it's kind of helped us out, but I think it's also prolonged the death of this archaic system, just like James said. What do we do to shorten that lifespan of this broken system? Because all it's done is push the liability down.
Let's
on
not.
the
Well, I already
Let's
told
not
you,
shorten
Chad.
it. We
Weren't
have
you listening?
0% unemployment in our industry. Let's not shorten this stuff. Let's not fix anything. Damn it.
Because I love Chad. I've been working with Chad for a decade.
I'd like to retire.
You have to ask for transparency, right? You have to have people fess up as here's how we were screwed, right? And once you can say that, then somebody can say, well, look, now we know patterns in getting messed up, and let's solve those, and then you can start addressing real things versus crazy things.
So my grade 4 teacher, Mrs. Barber, had this crazy way of making sure that we were doing the right thing all the time. She called it a snap quiz. Why do we book audits?
Pop quiz.
Why don't we just have them? You know, someday you walk in and the Spanish Inquisition shows up. The PCI Inquisition shows up and says, you know what, we're going to find out whether or not you're compliant today.
They do it for restaurants.
Next.
They do that in the credit union sector. We have audits year round, or used to when I worked there.
Yeah. Self-congratulatory reach around for the win.
Why would we do random audits and tests when we have anonymous and lulzsec?
Boo.
Next question. Hi.
Hi. About that pretty dismal slide with the percentage statistics on the breached organizations. Question about the firewall thing. Do you have any idea whether the very low percentage of the firewall compliance was due to the organizations actually not having a firewall at all, or was it because they failed to document the firewall rules as per PCI?
Yeah, we lumped all of why would you fail requirement 1. So it's documentation and so forth. But as we just said about operations being so damned important, there you go.
Yeah.
I'm not arguing that PCI sets out great operational rigor. I'm just saying if it's 18%, that's indicative.
Two follow-ups, though. One is they were compliant at one point prior. And 2 is, we didn't say it because we didn't have time, but out of that 761, how many of them were SMBs with 11 to 100 employees?
400 and some odd plus.
A lot of that is really describing the bottom of the market, level 3, level 4, and not necessarily equally applicable to large
Yeah, but if you go
enterprise.
back to a higher
that's
level
right.
1, level 2...
Large?
Wait. If
Okay,
you go
go
back
ahead.
to a higher level 1, level 2 representation, yeah, it's still pretty abysmal. It's not 18%, but it's like 40%, you know?
Okay, thank you.
Hey guys.
This is the last question.
No,
until we move.
No,
We
we
have
have 20 minutes. We have another 15 or so. But because the next one can't.
I got somebody waving fingers at
I
me.
just wanted to make a comment on the firewall thing. The situation that my friend Bob told me about that I mentioned earlier about IPS with that special NTP server.